Esoteric Meme Breakdown, episode 71. There is an ancient and dead city a half-mile under the soil of Dayton, Ohio. Streets filled with the ancient bones and dried blood of a human-like species not known to science. This quote-unquote most normal Ohio meme could be basing its claims from a couple different sources. An old newspaper article claiming a person found skeletons of giants and a sandstone slab with ancient writing, or some curious geological unconformities found in the Dayton area. Let's dig deep. In the late 1800s, a fraudster named John Everhart dug into the Great Serpent Mound, a mound in the shape of a snake built and refurbished by natives over 2,000 years ago to approximately 900 years ago southeast of Dayton. The timeline is a little fuzzy. Some say it was built by the Fort Ancient culture, and some say the Adena culture. Regardless, this white guy named John vandalized some artifacts, and would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for him not getting taken to court by the person he'd said he'd pay $15 to give the slab, quote, the appearance of ancient work, and the giant skeletons he and his crew found, that was also later admitted to be an exaggeration. Dayton sits on top of the Glacial Till Plains. A glacial till is a mix of stuff that was once in a glacier but is now on the ground. It's super fertile and great for growing stuff. To know exactly what's a half mile under the surface of Dayton, you'd have to dig. One such way is to get a core sample. However, that's expensive and covers only a small area, usually 3 to 6 inches in diameter. Looking elsewhere, such as nearby state parks or quarries, is helpful. Here we can see that we'd find some sedimentary rock and maybe some metasedimentary if we went further down. This rock is way older than what we'd call ancient, which is 3000 BC to 500 AD. Once again, consult the chart or use Ohio's freaking amazing interactive map. And speaking of amazing, look at this map of Dayton, Ohio during the Ordovician geologic period. This is the map I didn't know I needed. Unconformities, that is, areas in rock where older rock is right next to much younger rock, is not uncommon and can occur for a variety of reasons. In Ohio, these unconformities are hundreds of millions of years old and were caused by aliens. It's worth noting now that memes like this and ideas such as aliens built the pyramids are historically rooted in white people's rejection that non-white people could build complex things. Obviously, it's a joke, but sometimes it gets a little stale, and it's worth just giving credit where credit is due. So we may never know what lurks beneath Ohio. The 203-page field guide written by Gregory Schumacher, Brian Mott, and Michael Engel that meticulously outlines every type of rock within the state simply cannot be trusted. Keep an open mind, indulge your curiosity, and let me know your favorite type of rock. Esoteric Meme Breakdown, episode 72, Papaina o Hidrogel. Papaina o Papayan in Inglés is an enzyme naturally found in the papaya fruit. An enzyme is a protein that helps cause chemical reactions. The papayan enzyme can break down meat fibers and is used for tenderizing meat and also for cleaning up wounds. It can also kill some parasites, and people eat the seeds for that reason or to better their digestion. Hidrogel, also called hydrogel, is a hydrogel. It loves water and loves to absorb it. It is an official definition from IUPAC, International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. Gel in which the swelling agent is water. It has tons and tons and tons of applications. Using our context clues we learned in first grade, we can create a mental Venn diagram and see that this meme is referring to its use as hydrogel dressing, that is, hydrogel for use accelerating the wound healing process. There can be different hydrogels tweaked for different types of wounds and healing goals. With that in mind, the papayan in this case isn't a dietary supplement, but an ointment or cream of sorts. In this application, it helps eliminate dead or infected tissue by breaking it down to allow the healthier, stronger tissue to recover. So in this case, the meme man is likely wondering which tube he should reach for to treat a cut. Side note, Jake Clark, who made the original image for this meme, worked on Cuphead and Hey Arnold. So which do you pick? Well, don't use both, please. They're not designed to be mixed. I know heckin' doctor, but in cases of small cuts, just clean it with water and put ointment on it. If you don't have ointment, I'd use hydrogel. Well, I'd actually put nothing on it and just slap a band-aid on top. But then again, I suffer from toxic masculinity disease. Keep an open mind, indulge your curiosity, and let me know the deepest wound you've ever received, physical or otherwise. Esoteric Meme Breakdown, episode 73, Gunna amazed by Brachiosaurus vomiting. Rapper Gunna has been amazed by many incredible things, both real and fake. Unfortunately, this falls into the not real category, as this illustration is a hypothetical from a book about dinosaur trace fossils. A trace fossil is kinda like the Chicago rat hole. Stuff like footprints, bite marks, etc. Not direct evidence of an animal's body, but evidence of what the animal's body was doing. Author Tony Martin's book about these fossils included a calculation of the impact force of throw-up from a Brachiosaurus. Wait a minute. They made the fruit snack brand into a dinosaur? In an interview, Martin even refers to it as a fantasy, but the calculations are physically accurate. Now you're probably wondering, so what is the oldest vomit we've found? And would Gunna be amazed by it? Well, it isn't from 150 million years ago like the Brachiosaurus, but from 66 million years ago. However, this regurgitolite, as they call it, may never have technically hit the stomach, so some would argue it's not true vomit, but rather a gastric ejection. Regardless, the fossil contains fragments of sea lilies, which are not plants, but animals. Crinoids, if you will. Some fish, some crabs, and some urchins occasionally partake in nibbling on sea lilies, although some crinoids contain toxins which would certainly cause tummy issues. Yeah, nature boy, but would Gunna be amazed? Well, knowing that since losing 40 pounds, he's been eating clean and has a personal trainer. Gunna knows just how difficult it is to regenerate muscle tissue. Some crinoids can regenerate an entire arm lost to a fish within 3 weeks. If that isn't worth some amazement, I don't know what is. Gunna, if you're listening, I'll just say it. I want a feature. Keep an open mind, indulge your curiosity, and let me know if you've ever poached and then eaten an animal from a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and if you think I should be on a Gunna track. Esoteric Meme Breakdown, episode 74. Boo! Get better material. This is a modification of the classic crow meme where the crow's different material is just more cause. Here, we see the crow singing apart from Bach's The Art of the Fugue, which is considered a monothematic composition. That is, it uses the same motifs and themes throughout its multiple sections. Bach died before the piece's completion, and he gave no notes as to which instruments it was supposed to be played on, leaving many to speculate if there was a grander vision or if it was just a musical exercise. But this heckler a-hole doesn't think there's a grander vision. In fact, he's incapable of understanding that music and crow communication may sound similar to itself at times, but that it's the subtle changes in the rhythm, melody, and tone that transform it into something moving, something crows can interpret and understand and have a reaction to. For example, to us humans, a couple of crows cawing on a car simply sounds like a cacophonous swill, but to crows, this could mean a variety of things. Loudness, length, how steady the call is, the call's tone, where the crow is, and more all play into what a crow is trying to say. Our ears, 1, are not trained to understand, and 2, are not tuned to be able to pick up the subtleties that crows can hear, as our ears are tuned for human speech. Just like how a person who hasn't listened to much music can't grok or fully appreciate a composition, we all cannot grok the calls of crows. And yes, extrapolated, this implies that people can have objectively good and bad taste, depending on how much training or consumption experience they have, among other factors. Does this mean crows have their own language? That may still be a no. However, there is much more information encoded into their caws than meets the human ear. Crows have been observed making racket at dead crows, leading some researchers to think they're studying how the crow died and passing that information along. They've also been observed doing other stuff to dead crows, but so have many other social animals. Crows do make other sounds besides caws too. But does that mean I believe that Bach's numbering system for the art of the fugue relates to some crap about the Book of Revelation, as some suggest? No, I do not believe that, but knowing he was a great composer leads me to believe that there was at least some reason he made it, and I'm content with not knowing what that reason is. Keep an open mind, indulge your curiosity, and let me know if you've ever been robbed by a crow or played an open score on a harpsichord. Esoteric Meme Breakdown, episode 75, Man. This is based on the existential leaning man, horse, or sometimes cow meme. There, the horse gazes off into the ocean thinking about its own existence and solvable inter-horse conflict. If only the other horses would take the same amount of time to learn about the world that this horse has already done. It knows the solutions to all the world's problems, but also knows these solutions don't come easy, especially when other horses choose to stay ignorant and perpetuate solvable issues. Here, we see one such solution to a sanitary and an environmental problem in the form of the quote-unquote infinity hand towel. However, close-minded thinking and laziness drove the so-called closed-loop dispenser to near extinction. Now, visible only to those who appreciate its greatness, its ghost haunts the earth and laments its unfair, fabricked demise. The cloth towel dispenser isn't actually a 6-foot loop of towel, but a 100-foot long towel, with the used section getting rolled up and not reused until it's laundered. It's always fresh. Some people might say, but it was gross and janitors would just put the roll back in without washing it. That is easier said than done because the used towel roll would not plop right back into the fresh dispenser slot. It would need to be precisely re-rolled anyway, which a lazy janitor is not going to do. The more likely issue was that people would use way too much and it would reach the end of the roll before Cintas could put a new one in and take the used one. But then again, people can use way too many paper towels and run out of those too. In either case, you're drying your hands on your pants. The lifetime use of one of these cloth rolls is around 175 launderings, which, according to Hubesh, now part of Cintas, is equivalent to 30,000 paper towels. That's a lot of paper saved. But with the advent of energy-efficient air dryers, institutions have to think critically about the choice between a cloth system or an air system, with the pragmatic choice often being the air dryer. But perhaps the final nail in their coffin was the string of child deaths in Canada involving kids voluntarily hanging from the dispensers, either as part of a blackout game or for other reasons. That's just bad publicity for the cloth machines, however well-intentioned and environmentally friendly they are. So whether from unpopularity stemming from ignorance or from being blown away by air dryers, the cloth towel dispenser is a relic of the past. Have we made progress, or is it simply only mere change? Keep an open mind, indulge your curiosity, and let me know if you've ever thought about just kind of walking into the ocean like Godzilla, never to be seen until the next century when you come back to see what kind of hand-drying technology people have dispensed next. Esoteric Meme Breakdown, episode 76. We both need new gyms. Agreed. A variation on the "where do you work out" meme, also seen in episode 40. These characters acknowledge they both need new gyms rather than ask which gyms they go to. Evolutionary biology's most famous birds. On the left is finch number 1 out of over a dozen species, also known as the large ground finch, as illustrated by British ornithologist John Gould. These finches are from the Galapagos Islands, and John Gould's identification and research greatly contributed to Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species, even though Darwin left on his trip to mainly study geology. Essentially, back in the day, a flock or a couple of finches of the same species made their way over to these isolated islands far off the coast of Ecuador. They may have originally looked like their closest continental relative, the dull-colored grassquit. Because there wasn't a whole lot of bird activity happening on the islands before they showed up, it was bird paradise. In fact, the birds discovered there were multiple niches they could fill, and fill they did. Over time, the birds found their lanes and started eating different things. Some ate bugs and some ate super hard nuts. Those who were eating nuts, doing crunches, if you will, developed bigger, stronger beaks, while the more agile cardio bunnies ate fast-moving insects. Some also ate fruit, no joke. A single species ended up changing and filling all the bird niches on the islands. This is called adaptive radiation. On the right is a fella whom I would argue needs a different gym much more badly than the finch. This is an illustration by Luis Cruces for the Anticamina Chemical Company. Somehow, during the late 1800s and early 1900s, people saw these promotional calendars, which this illustration is taken from, and some other illustrations of dead people doing various activities, and really thought to themselves, gee, I should ingest this product. And ingest they did. Their flagship product, Anticamina, sold very well, and its founders got very, very rich. And by now, you're probably not wondering, because you already know, was the main ingredient of Anticamina toxic to humans? What do you think? You really think it wasn't? Of course it was. Multiple people died from taking it, so they later changed the main ingredient from acetanilide to acetophantidin, which is less toxic, but is no longer used in medicine because it causes cancer. There were many such cure-all patent medicines at the time and were advertised in creative ways. That's where we get the phrase medicine show from. Salespeople would travel from city to city and put on performances hawking their snake oils. Companies would partner with creatives and musicians such as Slim Jim and the Vagabond Kid, getting sponsored by Hamlin's Wizard Oil for a book of their songs. The wizard oil was half alcohol mixed with stuff such as ammonia, chloroform, turpentine, and more, and could be applied topically or ingested if you were really desperate. But thankfully, creators these days don't partner with sketchy companies selling products that don't do anything besides act as a placebo. It simply doesn't happen. Keep an open mind, indulge your curiosity, and let me know if you'd buy my new product, Pete's Magic Beak Enlargement Serum. Esoteric Meme Breakdown, episode 77. If you are Latvian extraterrestrial and don't know what this is, get out of my province. events. Brian Horak, author of Minotrap and Minotrap 2, was perhaps the most infamous buyer of billboard space in northern Ontario and parts of the Trans-Canada Highway from 2006 to 2018. For over a decade, he advertised his extremely bizarre, horny, ATV-riddled alien invasion sci-fi series throughout the province on cryptic billboards that often lacked sufficient information to tell what the heck Minotrap actually was. Minotrap is a book about an alien invasion that takes place in northern Ontario. However, before that happens, it's mainly about people riding around on ATVs and spying on each other through telescopes. But as David, in his 2-star review, put it, actually most of the book after the alien plot heats up is drunken dinner parties and driving around on ATVs too. He goes on to say that he gives it the 2-star rating, even though it's a 1-star book, because of just how unintentionally funny and so bad it's good it is. In another review, Brad Simcolet describes the book as finding a truth within the pages. Horak has captured a very specific niche of Canadian citizenry. His group of friends really exist here in Canada. I know folks like them. Hell, I have some relatives like them. The entitlement, the selfishness, the mechanized outdoorsiness, the sexual innuendo that goes nowhere, the beer swilling, the treating of nature as an object, the disdain for anything that limits their ability to do whatever they want. It is all present in Canada. All true, and Horak gets his characterizations just right. In the sequel, set 10 years later, different aliens invade, and even more typos and grammatical errors are found throughout. While the reviews are overwhelmingly negative, few people actually have regrets about reading the books, finding them at least entertaining. On September 14th, 2018, Brian Horak died at age 64, but his memories remained until the last prepaid billboard contracts expired a few years later. Now his memory remains only in our hearts and minds. This July, his partner Mary died on her 65th birthday, the weight of Brian's passing heavy on her heart. Unfortunately, we will never know what happens in a hypothetical Minotrap 3, and we will never get a spin-off series based in Latvia where similar events happened within the book. Keep an open mind, indulge your curiosity, and let me know if you've seen any of these billboards still up in 2025, or if you've read the Minotrap, or if you've seen them in real life. Esoteric Meme Breakdown, Episode 78, Halloween Blizzard 1991. I was there, dude, and it sucked! This is a modification to the Operation Desert Storm bootleg Bart t-shirt. If you're over the age of 40 and lived in Minnesota in 1991, you know exactly where you were on October 31st. Indeed, the Halloween Blizzard of 91 was Minnesota's most talked about event since the tragic wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald in 75. Blah, 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 that's great and all, but how does that relate to a volcano in the Philippines, treasured Hollywood actor Brad Pitt, noted Democrat George Clooney, and that white guy who we gave an opportunity to turn his life around and open up a burger joint with his quirky siblings? The answer is that they all starred, minus the volcano, in 2000's The Perfect Storm movie about the perfect storm of 1991. That storm, a crazy mega cyclone that also absorbed Hurricane Grace, hit the east coast of the United States, causing hundreds of millions of dollars in damage and 13 people to die. These two weather events are linked. As is all weather, I'm sure you're saying. So anyway, pre-blizzard, the south was very hot and the northwest was abnormally cold. A cold front came through from the north to the south, causing temperatures to drop from the 80s into the 20s in Texas and get really cold up north. But when the front hit the Gulf of Mexico, it stalled due to the perfect storm's conditions. The pre-blizzard, unable to continue southeast, gathered a bunch of moisture and, with no other physical choice, headed north. When all the treats were tricked and all the cars shoveled out, around 2 feet of snow fell in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area and over 3 feet fell in Duluth, Minnesota. 22 people died. Also, the 1991 eruption of Mount Pinatubo caused tons of debris to shoot up into the sky, causing global temperatures to decrease. Having the global average temperature change by a degree or more causes more severe weather events, this being one example. Luckily, everybody knows this and are taking proper precautions such as building infrastructure and exploring renewable energy options as the global average temperature rises from human greenhouse gas emissions. Hey, I have an idea. Maybe we can just offset the global temperature increase by having a volcano or two erupt every year. Problem solved. Keep an open mind, indulge your curiosity, and let me know what meme you'd like me to spin for my woke leftist agenda next. Esoteric Meme Breakdown, episode 79, Ancient Sandwich Meme. This is yet another version of the dudes be like Subway sucks, commonly followed up with my brother in Christ, you made the sandwich meme. A reverse image search tells me that the first and second rows are in Old Turkic script. This specific form was used from around 700 to 900 CE in East Turkestan and Mongolia. It is read right to left, which made it hard for me to pick out the characters and copy and paste them into a document as someone who is used to reading left to right. Thankfully, once I completed this, a quick search yielded a result for the first word, an Old Turkic word for male ruler or king. Some would say Khan. That makes sense given the original word is dudes. Unfortunately, the second line returned no search results and nothing in Google Translate, so I tried to find a specialized translator. After some stumbling around, I found the modern Orkan Yenisi Turkic alphabet translator. This tool takes modern Turkic letters and puts them into Old Turkic and vice versa. Plugging in the second line gets Sene Theology, which translates from Turkish to jaw theology, which doesn't seem totally correct, but there are other modern Turkic languages besides Turkish. Translating this from Chuvash, a language spoken by less than 1 million Chuvash people, mostly living in a single area in Russia, returns new theology, which makes more sense. The bottom Hebrew word I vaguely already recognize translates to Jehovah, but others would say Yahweh, but not everyone would say it, but that's a story for another time. This is the name of God in the Hebrew Bible. This also makes some sense, as the covered-up word is Christ. Aside from meaning a contemporary god within Christianity and Judaism, Yahweh used to be a god of weather and war, and the national god of Israel and Judah. The origins of this god are cloudy with a chance of battle, but roughly appeared between 1500 and 500 BCE. So essentially, Khans be like, new theology, my brother in Yahweh, okay. So, this meme could be referencing a historical change of faith event or events involving groups that used Old Turkic. In the 1500s, Russia started a Christianization campaign with pressure for the Chuvash people to convert to the Orthodox Church increasing in the 1700s. However, Russian Orthodox Christians wouldn't use the term Yahweh. Between 700 and 900 CE, there is a bit of evidence that some Khazars, a group of people that spoke Old Turkic, did switch from Tengriism to Judaism and Christianity, but at this point I'm just speculating. Either way, okay doesn't necessarily imply a strong willingness to convert. Let me know if you have a theory. Keep an open mind, indulge your curiosity, and let me know if you think your religion is the correct one. Esoteric Meme Breakdown, episode 80, my architect be losing his mind, bro. Lamau, what is this? These are not cross-sections of body parts or cells, but renderings by architect, clothing designer, flamenco guitarist, senior Olympics champion, and visionary Eugene Sway. Born in Cleveland, Ohio, he now works in California where he does everything. The top diagram is from his concept Nexus Mobile Floating Sea City, a 7-kilometer long self-sustainable city-state designed to accommodate 100,000 people. The bottom is from his concept called Ankrisa, a residence for a family with an anticipated need for more and more space. Sway's most well-known conceptual work is Ultima Tower, a super-tall skyscraper unveiled in 1991 able to house over 1 million people. The structure's design takes inspiration from termite mounds described by Sway as possibly the greatest engineering feat in the natural world. The building is designed to also be self-sustainable. And by now you're thinking, these are ridiculous and could never be built. And Eugene would answer, yes, but also no. Sway designed and built his own home and has had other of his smaller scale projects built. He also argues that some of his clothing is more practical than meets the eye, given how flashy and over the top it appears. So, why would it be wrong to dismiss this kind of fantastical work as quote-unquote losing his mind? Besides that he could beat you in a fight even though he's in his 70s. The short answer is that visionaries like him and others who make so-called avant-garde objects are trying to keep society on a direction that doesn't end up with your children working in a cube farm producing gray food cube widgets for your consumption enjoyment. Visionaries attempt to isolate contemporary and far future societal needs and engineer solutions for them. These are meant to inspire people who are alive today to think outside the box, to work with nature instead of against nature, to make people understand that there is a world that continues after their own death, worthy of being contributed to now. This is why we talk about megacities, space elevators, sled launches, and their ilk. Someone's got to dream it and someone's got to work toward it. Otherwise, civilization is destined to stagnate. And I do hate to mention Elon Musk in a positive light, because he really isn't what I would call a visionary, but you know what he is? Someone who takes visionaries seriously while remaining, relatively speaking, pragmatic in his technological advancement goals. He He, however, from what I can tell, doesn't care about nature in the slightest, which Eugene Sway would call a major mistake. So while people may point and laugh at the outlandishness, the man who looks like he was cast in Gentleman Broncos, others understand that without grappling with big ideas, habitat destruction, environmental catastrophe, space exploration, you name it, we stagnate and end up living in identical houses working a job where we have to copy some other brand's product and attempt to sell it to people who are afraid of anything outside of what they already know. F***ing depressing. Keep an open mind, indulge your curiosity, and let me know if you think you can play drums as well as Eugene Sway can.